say about the NES that hasn't already been said? Well, I could say it's a piece of shit and end the video now, but that's not entirely true. See, we live in the year 2020. Everything that could be said about this little gray box has already been said so. So what I figured I would do is I'd go over some of my more personal memories, things that I find that I'm really attached to, and something that is unique to me, something that only I can talk about. So I figured I'd go over my memories with this console, but first, I wanted to show you something.
You see this yellow-stained, tiny little, barely functioning piece of hardware? This was my NES. As a gift from my uncle sometime in 2005 or 6, I played the hell out of it. For years, I didn't even know what this thing was called, but apparently it was made by some company called Yobo Gameware. According to my research, they specialize in making bootleg consoles and are still around today apparently, and are making things like Nintendo Switch and PS4 accessories. This thing is called the FC Game Console, and it used to be white and red, although I can say that I've never once in my life seen this thing be anything other than yellow. For years, this was my NES, but it wasn't until I grew up did I realize that I never really had a real Nintendo.
So, I think it's high time I boot up the NES Classic Edition and take a stroll down memory lane.
Jeez, so where do I even start? I could talk about how I didn't have time to play these games a lot when I was a kid. I had a lot of other stuff going on. But I'm sure you can all understand the rush of coming home from school, running to your parents' room or your living room, and trying to make progress on a game that doesn't even save. Games like Mega Man were one of those, and while I never played it myself up until recent years, watching my dad try and beat it on the weekends was something I would never forget. We'd line up beanbags, get some snacks, sit on the floor with nothing but the glow of the TV illuminating my parents' room. Well, the side of it anyway. We used to play on this tiny 24-inch blocky TV, and I never had the system hooked up to a bigger one. Save for those rare occasions when my sisters and cousins all wanted to play too. Then we'd all gang up in the living room and hook it up to the big TV we had. Mega Man is a game I remember being hard as nails. See, if my dad couldn't beat it, it had to be the hardest game in the whole world. That was how I judged difficulty back then. It only made sense. For games that we'd play together, though, oh jeez, there was no competition against the likes of Pac-Man, Kung Fu, Burger Time, Mario Bros. Arcade, Excitebike, Balloon Fight, and Galaga. We'd play those incredibly short and simple arcade games for hours. He would always try to show me tricks in Pac-Man, like using the power pellets to eat all the dots in the best way, or trying to avoid a bee in Galaga on level 1 or 2 to somehow become invincible. Ask him to this day, and he'll say he's the Kung Fu and Balloon Fight master. Oh, and don't even get him started on Burger Time. You'll be there for hours. Sometimes, though, I wanted to play a game all to myself. That game in question, well, it was Bubble Bobble. Amazing, I know. But this game was relaxing to me as a little child. The music was nice, it wasn't hard at all, the sprites of the enemies and the dinosaur dragon things were so cute, I loved it. Now, well, you know, it's like it's night and day. This game is so easy you can beat it in 10 minutes. Probably 5 if you were dedicated enough. Let me change gears to the topic of sports here. It was something I was never really good at. I played my hand in soccer, but again, who didn't? I remember being good at it, except for now anyway, I might as well have 2 left feet. But football is the one that always eluded me. I was a tiny, scrawny little weakling when I was younger. Everyone was bigger and stronger than me. I tired out after running a lot, and no one wanted to play with me. So naturally, I never got into football, and to this day, I don't really care for it. But Tecmo Bowl by Tecmo was like my little escape. My way of being good at football. Now, my size didn't matter. I could take control of some big, muscly dude and run across an entire field, never fumble or drop the ball, just touchdown after touchdown. It was quite invigorating, when I wasn't running around like a dumbass in a snake pattern anyway. It was certainly something my dad was better at, but nonetheless, it was definitely something I enjoyed. Then, you know, there's games like Mario Bros. Arcade and Donkey Kong. These were games that my older sister and I would play all the time and never got tired of, no matter how short they were. Of course, naturally, I was better at games than she was, so sometimes she would just take the controller from me when she didn't get to play for a while during 2-player mode, but we still had a lot of fun. It's funny how we'd play these games for so long, considering they're over in probably 5 minutes. Maybe we just sucked.
I have a lot of fond memories with the NES. But something I'm even fonder of is those epic moments when you want to test your skill. And when you wanted to test your skill, you pop in games like Ninja Gaiden and Castlevania. Those were the talk of the town back in the day. And I like to think I grew up in a special period of time when kids my age, their parents grew up playing NES games. So when I went to school, other kids, they had access to those games and they got to play them. You were the king of the playground if you could beat something like Ninja Gaiden or Castlevania. But those games were tough. Those were the kind of games that would kick you in the balls and spit on you when you're down. But if you wanted to prove you were the best, you do nothing but try to tackle them.
Well, I never played Castlevania all the way through until I got my hands on the NES Classic. Ninja Gaiden, on the other hand, was a daily attempt kind of thing. I'd wake up early in the morning, I'd speed through my cereal, then I'd just plant myself in front of the TV trying to beat it. And after long hours of gameplay, my fingers would sweat, I'd stand up in front of the TV, I'm shaking the controller. It was more tense than any thriller. These were the kind of games that make you angry. And when you're angry, you want to punch something. When I wanted to punch something, I played Punch-Out! Of course, I do remember getting my ass handed to me by King Hippo of all people, but nowadays there's nothing stopping me from getting all the way to Tyson, or rather Mr. Dream these days. Beating him though, that's a totally different story.
Now the smart-eyed viewer might have realized that I've left out two very important games. Games that were landmarks for their time, that set the way for all games to come. Total pioneers in their genre. I'm of course talking about Donkey Kong Jr. Math and Duck Hunt. Nah, but seriously, let me get into the games I really didn't talk about, being Super Mario Bros. And Legend of Zelda.
Where do I even begin with these? They're the only two games I still have from my original collection, and have always been a priority when moving houses. The Legend of Zelda is a game that my dad and I always dedicate time out of the year to get around to and solving, even though we've already done so countless times. Super Mario Bros. Is a game that, when you can beat in about 4 minutes these days, have you seen speedruns of it? It was an epic quest for me at the time. Defeating the evil King Bowser and saving Princess Toadstool, there was nothing like it. Yes, in Zelda you explore a large overworld, defeat labyrinths, and collect the all-powerful Triforce, but it was also fairly slow-paced. Mario was much more to my liking at the time. Fun power-ups, fast-paced, side-scrolling gameplay, and difficult level layouts and enemy placement made it a fun, if not challenging time. Now, I prefer Zelda when given the chance to replay this game, since I mostly use the level skip secrets in Mario. I'll go more in detail when I can finally sink my teeth into these respective franchises in marathon form, which is dependent on the straw poll answers that I'll once again leave a link for.
So that's it with most of my personal memories with the Nintendo Entertainment System. I'm aware I'm leaving out really big hitters like DuckTales or Metroid, Final Fantasy, or even Kid Icarus, but the truth is, I grew up with those games. Never owned them as a kid, so I don't have any personal memories with them. Metroid, I didn't really care for its gameplay style back then, and I still don't to this day. Final Fantasy, I didn't like RPGs as a kid. I found them really boring. Kid Icarus, didn't care for its style, still don't really care about it to this day. And as for DuckTales, never played the original, never owned it, but I did buy the remaster, loved it then. But that's what it really comes down to. For things I don't have personal memories with, I didn't own them. Just like how I never owned original model NES or any of its accessories. But, you know, it still holds a pretty good place in my heart, even if I did own just a stupid little bootleg system like this. Sometimes even if it is fake, it can still hold a lot of value.
So far, I've talked a lot about things that make the NES special to me, but I've saved something that I enjoy the most for last. When I was younger, I used to get teased a lot for listening to video game music, and while I've grown up and met people with common interests, there's some moments where I'll do nothing but listen to 8-bit music all day. Ask someone what they think about music from the NES, and they'll make some baseless assumption that it always sounds like... when in reality, it's much more than that. It can be intense, atmospheric, emotional, energetic, and rockin'. Take a dive down and you'll find you're listening to some of the most amazing tunes ever released for our hearing pleasure.
you so much for going back to the past with me, and for joining me when I helped you take a look at one of the most defining things from my childhood. The Nintendo Entertainment System and all of its games, some of its games, hold a very special place in my heart, and always will. I plan on doing a follow-up video with the Super Nintendo because I played that a whole lot more, and still do to this day, than the little gray box. And you know, it's just crazy to think that when I was still wrapped up in the 8-bit era, consoles like the original Xbox and the Sega Dreamcast had already hit the scene. I guess that's just the power that these systems have, and of course, still do. As for me though, as I mentioned in the last video, I'm still going to be leaving a straw poll. I will decide my next marathon in the description. It ends June 10th, so hopefully I'll be able to squeeze out another video before that day comes, but in case I don't, I'll see you next time for the first video of that marathon, and hopefully it's a very exciting subject matter. But until that day comes, my name is Waylon, but you knew that already. Stick around for more. What are you doing here?